Thank you guys for joining us. Today we're going to be speaking with Paul Croteau, Field CTO of Rackspace, and Laura Keating, who is, Laura, I'm going to let you take your title here, if you don't mind filling.
Absolutely. I'm our Cloud Service Provider Program Director for North America.
Can't believe I couldn't remember all of that.
That's okay. It's a mouthful.
And guys, what we're going to be highlighting today is the value that Dell brings to the partnership with Rackspace and how that translates into the value that Rackspace brings in to our channel and our partnerships with them as a service provider that we can offer our customers. And I really want to start off by just kind of addressing, some of the marketplace that we're talking about with cloud and all the different focus that all three of our companies have put on this. And so, Lauren, I'd love to maybe kind of kick it over to you to just talk about some of the addressable market as you guys see it at Dell.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably one of the most important things to validate the marketplace first and foremost, right? A lot of times when we, go to our sellers and talk about something new or something that we're trying to push as relevant, it's like, well, hey, why, right? And it really does come down to validating the market when it comes to third-party analyst data and just what trends are we seeing and what are customers actually doing. And it's funny because I just said something new, right? And cloud is not new. There's nothing new about cloud, right? Cloud has been a buzzword for over a decade now. And what that has meant over time and what that still means to people and to customers and to end users is very different, right? And in fact, it can be defined in a number of different ways. At the end of the day, cloud, the concept of cloud is a consumption model. The way you consume cloud can be done in a number of different ways, right? We're probably going to lean and talk a little bit more about hosted private cloud today in some regard, but we'll probably touch on a lot of different buckets in just the basics of how do I broach a cloud conversation and why am I doing it? Absolutely. So talking about kind of like validating that third-party market data, I'll share my screen with you guys for a second and just kind of bring up some of the most recent statistics that we've taken a look at, especially as it comes to not only the beginning of the year in 2020, but especially now with this new normal and things that have really been accelerated by of course, the dynamic change in how business is occurring right now, how folks are working remotely and things like that, right? I think that it's huge to say this first call out. Clients are reassessing their data center costs, and that's happening all the time. At the end of the day, any conversation you're having with a customer, whether it's about selling a piece of hardware, a piece of software, or a new consumption model, is like, how can I help you to make or save money? Bottom line. As a result of this, though, 80% of enterprises are saying, we're going to get out of the traditional data center, right? This concept of data center evacuation, which is a really, really interesting concept because the immediate and initial instinct is public cloud. When I say public cloud, I mean hyperscalers, the AWS, Amazon, Google, Azure, right? But at the same time, our customers are finding really, really quickly that there is a dynamic way that they need to split and operate their workloads depending on the demands, right? So as you can see, a lot of folks are looking to this kind of public cloud model. They realize, okay, maybe not everything's for public cloud, and then they're going toward repatriation, right? Mm-hmm. Or bringing workloads back on premise or trying to put them somewhere else. That really comes to private cloud, right? Repatriating workloads from public to private. Private cloud is a more dedicated environment. It's more dedicated to the end user. It has more control, performance, security, availability, right? The SLAs that our end user customers really care about. But it's still going to be hosted and managed somewhere. As a matter of fact, 2 of 5 private cloud deployments, which we used to look at as being on-premise, are going to go off-prem, right? And that's being accelerated by a 6x multiplier right now based on the new normal and the fact that many of our C-level executives are admitting they're accelerating their project timelines and they're trying to do things faster. So it's just some of the market dynamics that are going on right now. And, to be honest, there's no one more relevant than Rackspace when it comes to a private cloud deployment powered by Dell Technologies in the partnership with VMware, and also talking through cost optimization with repatriation, right? Or taking workloads back into the hyperscalers and trying to figure out what to do with them. So I know I kind of just threw a lot at you guys, but I think to set the table is important and to understand that, hey, the conversations you could be having are really going to be impactful because it's not really about if our customers are going to the cloud, but it's about when and how they're going to do that.
And you touched on something, and to kind of bring Paul into this, I absolutely agree that Rackspace is super well positioned here from both, that holistic cloud environment. Paul, you guys bring to the table a lot of different components, right? You can play with the hyperscalers and help in that space, but you also do have this amazingly solid private cloud offering that is powered by Dell. Can you touch on some of the spaces that you see there when you guys get into these conversations and you're helping that customer that's now been accelerated because of the new normal, right? You had companies that were like, yeah, we'd like to go to the cloud. And then they just got hit in the face and they're like, oh, we got to go to the cloud now. And so I think we can all agree a transformation plan without a really solid plan is not going to work that well. So we've got to, bring in the rack spaces and the expertise there. So Paul, without further ado, can you touch on, where Rackspace sees this market?
Absolutely. So you're exactly right. Everything you just said is fantastic. Lauren's stats are spot on. The trends are there. Going into private cloud is where things are going. Hybrid cloud, multi-cloud world. Insert acronym and catch buzz phrase, as needed. A lot of workloads just need to stay on customer dedicated gear, whether it's on-prem or in a data center somewhere else like one of ours or a colo facility where we can extend our services. Customers want that freedom and control that you don't get in the hyperscalers. The hyperscalers are a fantastic technology for the right use case. Rackspace, we've got a phrase we're fond of on the sales team, the cloud's for everyone, but not everything. And so we want to help customers figure out the best place for their workloads, where they should be running stuff. And there's a lot of factors. It's not just technology. There could be culture issues. There could be outsourcing concerns. There could be competitive issues. If you're in a retail space, why would you host your infrastructure in a retailer that might be eating your lunch in the market right now and taking business away from you? Maybe you've got a strong partnership with a different vendor that you need to exploit. And so you want to make sure you leverage that technology in the best way possible. So finding out how a customer is staffed, what their skill sets are, what they want to do, and finding the best place for that workload is really what we're expert at. And we've been working with Dell for nearly 20 years. I mean, our headquarters are 70 miles apart. They're in Austin, we're in San Antonio. It's straight up the road, although the traffic kind of stinks getting there. But we've been working together for nearly 2 decades. So we've got deep expertise on the capabilities of their servers, their storage platforms, et cetera. So when we speak to our customers, we talk to them and learn how are your staffing, how are your skill sets, what are you using today, what do you want to do performance-wise, application-wise, et cetera. And we figure out where those workloads should best reside. Maybe it's on-prem. I've been in situations last year, we had some customers that were looking at public clouds, hyperscalers, and after evaluation, they realized we need to remain on dedicated gear in a private cloud model in your facility, but on private gear for a variety of reasons. So every use case is unique, and we want to have Dell Professional Services and Rackspace Professional Services engaged as needed to find the right solutions. The two companies combined have really a solid 1-2 punch and a broad portfolio that can pretty much find a solution to almost every technical problem and issue out there.
And I know you guys have both been really focused on helping the channel understand how to position these conversations. When we say channel, it kind of paints a broad stroke, right? So Paul, you've been really focused in our channel for quite some time more. And now Dell, I believe, is turning a focus. It's like, how do we help, accelerate the understanding and the growth in this space for the, Telarus and their partners? So, if you guys could speak on that a little bit, and how do we help position these conversations and the value of why this is? I mean, we touched on the stats, we've kind of painted the picture, but what are some, like, 1 or 2 key just value points that we can hone in on?
It's a really, really good question. And I think it comes back to, I'm almost laughing at Paul and I right now already, because we've probably said words that the people watching this are going to be like, okay, no, we're afraid. What does that mean, right? Repatriation and multi-tenant and, private hosted. And it can be overwhelming and it can be intimidating when it's not a part of your normal day-to-day conversation. However, I actually, take a step back, and it's like the first and foremost thing I would say is don't be afraid to have a cloud conversation, right? I actually have a background 10 plus years at Heritage GMC and Dell Technologies in working with our sales folks in having conversations with customers around discovery and figuring out, sure, the traditional on-premise plays, but expanding beyond that and getting into the cloud conversation and how you do that. So remember, it's not if, but when our customers are moving workloads to cloud. It's not to say that our customers are all in, and once they say cloud, you have to turn and run, right? Just to Paul's point, he's talking a lot about how we want to get engaged with customers and we want to strategize with them and identify what are their true needs around what industry are they in, what applications and workloads do they have compliance demands, performance, access and availability issues or demands that they're working through, right? And we can help to almost, consult with them and help them to figure out how to best deploy. My advice is always to say, ask the questions. It's just like a competitor, right? If you're selling storage on premise and you're not asking who else they're looking at, you're just avoiding something, right? There's always a competitor in the door. That's the reality, right? Our consumers are educated today and they're out there doing the same research on cloud providers as well. So instead of necessarily running into a cloud conversation and saying, wow, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know anything about that, let me take a step back and lose the business, engage with them, right? Give yourself an opportunity not to lose out business to a hyperscaler, but to instead propose a more consultative engagement with a Rackspace of the world that's going to help to identify where we can place these workloads, right? One of our executives I was on a call with the other day, and I overheard him saying that customers have two decisions: where do I run my business, and where do I put my data, right? And that's up to us to help them to do that. So don't be afraid of the conversation and don't be afraid of providing all the answers. The true value proposition is within the partnership and the capability that someone like a Rackspace has in providing those managed services, right? They happen to build that on best of breed architecture and infrastructure with Dell and, power that with VMware tools, but they have the expertise around those managed services to give the end user exactly what they're looking for, no matter what that is. So if you ask the right questions and you expose the fact that, yes, this is top of mind, it's something that they're doing, or maybe they're open to other options, great. Then pass the mic to Paul, right? And get our teams engaged and let us have the further conversation around solutioning. That's not up to you. Don't worry about it, right? You don't need to build the quote. You don't need to build the configuration. You just got to get your foot in the door and understand where you can provide some value. And Paul, I don't know if you of course, I'm sure you have something to add to that too.
Absolutely. No, you're exactly right. It's having the right conversations. You should not be having technical conversations with your initial consult or the other follow-up consults after that. You should be talking about business issues. I've actually got a slide I'd like to share if I could real quick that covers this direct issue. Let's share the screen here. And we'll go with this one there. And you should see my full screen now. So a lot of folks out there selling, they're used to selling products, and that's a different sale than being a partner and selling services. So if we go to the bottom up mindset, you're speaking with procurement, you're talking about hardware and look at the IOPS on these disk arrays and the number of ports on this switch and the CPUs of this, the core count, blah, blah, blah. You're going in with blinders on, assuming a sale of a product that meets a need that you think that they have. And so it's a focused hardware vendor, bill of materials, match this price quoting discussion. And people make a lot of money doing that, but there's a whole lot more to be made when you go, instead of at the bottom talking to individual tech heads and procurement folks, if you go with the top down concept, business conversations, not technology, where you're asking questions about what your company is dealing with today. What are your struggles? What do you want to do? What's keeping you from doing that? Is it staffing? Is it lack of skills? Is it lack of money? You just can barely keep yourself afloat right now. When you're having these conversations at a high level, you're identifying business issues, disaster recovery, compliance, performance, growth, whatever. And now we're learning things about applications, where are your applications running, where is your data, where are your users. And we have these business conversations, and the goal of the sales call is usually to get to the next sales call and eventually get the signature. So the goal is to have these conversations with customers at a high level, not technical at all, and then find a reason to bring one of us in to have those conversations as subject matter experts, where we handle the tech details. You just kind of sit there, smile, and eventually get paid commission on it.
Right.
And let's not lose sight of this for the channel and all the things that we can offer, guys, to create a holistic solution here. So we talked about those conversations to open up the business conversations. And then from there, the pull through conversations on once we get those projects, because I can tell you that to support some of this new architecture, they're going to need SD-WAN. They're going to need network. They're going to need a lot of security and things of that nature that's going to come inherently into that play. So you're not just opening up a cloud opportunity, you're now positioning yourself to be a consultant across multiple projects and multiple opportunities within that account. And that's what I love about positioning these type of conversations, right? And when you understand the drivers of the business, and that's why my favorite question to ask whenever I get brought into something I'll get brought into a lot of conversations of, hey, I've got a customer who's looking to move to Azure. The first question I always ask is, why? Right? Second question is, do you have architects on staff? And if both of those are, I'm not really sure, or I got told I had to, and no, then I don't know if Azure is always going to be the best fit. And I love Azure, right? I love AWS, but as we hit on a couple of times, not always the best fit for things. And there's a lot of benefit to doing private cloud, cost, control, a lot of other things. It all comes down to what unique architecture and solution we need to build. I know Dell has kind of really positioned themselves to be that power of the cloud, and also, some of the legacy stuff too. You guys have really developed some really cool products that you're driving through. Lauren, do you want to touch on kind of some of the angles that you guys are seeing and some of the future things coming down the pipe with Dell?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the portfolio, it's interesting because when we talk about our cloud service providers and we talk about offering cloud, right, and as a service models, if you will, and offering this back to my original point, right, this consumption model. The architecture and the infrastructure really matters to our cloud service providers, that in the fact that it's building blocks to provide managed services. So what's under the covers is really what's going to power the managed services that, to Paul's point, are going to solve our end user customers' business challenges or drive business outcomes, right? So being, when Heritage EMC and Heritage Dell came together, especially, right, we look at Dell Technologies and this powerhouse of this strategically aligned businesses, the most relevant portfolio around multi-cloud today in industry-leading best-of-breed hardware, and then especially this VMware layer, right? So when we talk about the architecture to build solutions that are actually powerful and intelligent enough to provide services back out to our end users, and then provide that consistency of orchestration with VMware tools, that's really, really unique. Our heritage portfolio, of course, is something that was industry leading in compute and servers, and industry leading in core storage, right? Anything from our commercial or medium business to enterprises. Ultimately built our entire business on enterprise storage and then on server technology. And as we've gone forward, expanded on that portfolio to offer flexibility just to do the things we're talking about, accommodate for end user needs. One of the most dynamic solutions and products and technology in the industry today is hyperconverged infrastructure, right? We oftentimes talk about VMware as the operating system of the multi-cloud, and hyperconverged infrastructure is the architecture of multi-cloud, right? And the combination of the two can be really powerful. And at Dell Technologies, our solution in VxRail was actually the first solution ever, being the parent company, right, of the partner company of VMware. It's the first product we ever went to market with, just the two of us, right? And said, okay, this is going to be a solution that's going to dynamically scale. It's going to provide availability, performance, all this kind of stuff for end user customers. And it's all going to be powered by VMware technology. And that has really been kind of this like key pillar and building block to a majority of those private cloud deployments, and that platform to offer that private cloud architecture and consumption model. Of course, we've expanded on our portfolio since. We've just had a very, very exciting announcement around core storage as well, an additional core storage product called PowerStore. We continue to see opportunities in 3-tier infrastructure and architecture based on workloads and depending on what's important to our customers, and building a private cloud deployment on that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of dynamic flexibility in our portfolio, and I'm sure, Paul, that's something that you're vastly familiar with from a technical perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, Lauren, you touched on a great deal of technology there, right? Thanks for kind of covering the evolution of it and what you guys are doing now and what you're rolling out. Paul, kind of let's take that and say, this is why it's important to Rackspace, i.e. important to our partners, right? As we sell alongside one another. VxRail, I'm a big fan. I think that's a really powerful product or solution there. So Paul, I don't know if you want to kind of take that and run with it a bit.
With specifically regard to hardware choices and the benefits for
that hyper, not to go too deep technical, but that just the power behind that hyper converged layer that Dell is really honed in on there.
Well, there's a
And
lot of benefits there, and they've been pushing that for a while. And I know that we're working on some products in the back end, some services regarding VMware platform and VxRails and things of that sort. We're incorporating that into our technology. To me, the hyperconverged infrastructure concept really is a benefit to the folks deploying technology, to consolidation of physical gear, compute, storage, consolidated network, far fewer interfaces, much easier deploy, easier scale. It's all consolidated. That's really a benefit for the companies that are doing their own IT or the companies that are providing the IT for the customers. So translate that to the partners out there that are trying to sell. When they're talking to customers about technology solutions and they're bringing us in to talk about the ultimate design, having the technology that Dell is rolling out makes us as a provider able to do things with better performance, better security, faster to market. So it ends up with more positive outcomes for our customers, for your customers, because we got this great solid technology constantly evolving. It's hard for customers and even competitors of ours to keep up with the evolving technology changes. Dell, they're massive, and Rackspace is one of their biggest partners, and we deploy and learn all their technology. So customers that go through us are going to gain those economies of scale and leverage our experience in leveraging and utilizing that great new technology so that customers don't have to take the time to stop and learn it. Technology is always going to change. It's not going to wait for your IT teams to catch up. So just find partners that know this stuff and work with them so you can take advantage of all the great things that Dell EMC is having to offer through a company like a Rackspace.
And so I think what I'm hearing whenever I hear both of your guys' explanation is faster, smarter, quicker to deploy, quicker and faster obviously kind of overlap with each other, but easier to consume. And it's also making this a more comfortable transition for some legacy customers, right? You're making it less daunting. That's where I've seen the cloud just really evolve a ton is they've put, it was, hey, it's an open source, like do whatever you want type thing. And then there's almost kind of, to not make it sound demeaning, but like training wheel programs that have been of some of these solutions to help guide some of these legacy companies that were really cloud adverse into the cloud. And that's where I see that product in particular. It's like, hey, we'll let you go as fast or as slow as you want to, and we can adapt to whatever speed you want to do this and give you that scale, even in a private cloud setting versus what you would have normally only gotten out of your hyperscaler, right? In AWS and Azure, Google. And I think it puts those private clouds a little bit more on par there for that elasticity. We're probably going to edit that out for that scalability and being able to get that across for their or for their end users. And I mean, ultimately, not to wax poetic too much, but I think if we keep that in mind is all of these things and all of these conversations are always geared towards making a better environment for our customers and their end users. And our customers are in a competitive space now too, where they're having to retain talent both on every angle, and technology is such a big, component to job satisfaction. I can tell you that if mine come in and I can't get, these are the tools that we have to utilize. I can't get access to them or they don't work. I'm going to start looking around to go somewhere else because I'm not the problem. The company is the problem.
Sure.
So from a landscape point of view, Paul, I'm going to toss this actually back over to you. Talk about how taking the ability to grab the technology by Dell, but also bring in what Rackspace brings to the table as far as expanding teams and knowledge base to kind of put a bow on that topic for me.
So a company like a Rackspace, this brings deep benches covering every facet of application hosting infrastructure, and the Dell components are a vital infrastructure piece of that. So it's difficult for IT teams to work today. They're being asked to do more with less. 85% of IT spend right now is just on maintenance. They can't innovate, they can't learn. So they're just paying for maintenance contracts and power and cooling, et cetera. So they can't do cool stuff. Relying on companies like us, we are able to keep up with the latest and greatest that companies like Dell have to offer, the latest and greatest that the clouds have to offer. And because a little bit salesy here, because Rackspace supports all the hyperscalers, all the virtual platforms, with a large focus on the Dell suite, we can give customers unbiased yet opinionated suggestions on where the workloads should go. We've done the homework and the research that they just don't have the time or resources to do. So we're going to say this is where we think that workload makes the most sense, but you, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, still have a say in where you want it to go. There could be other factors involved, but it's just very, very hard for you to keep up with the portfolio that Dell has or the portfolio that the public clouds have. We are experts at doing that. So we step in and you attach our trailer of nearly 7,000 engineering employees to your company car, and we're helping supplement your IT teams, bringing the knowledge that they haven't had the time to learn. And by working with a company with deep benches like us, covering every facet, we can offload a lot of the hardware support, the break fix, the scaling, et cetera, that alleviates the pressures on your team, so your teams, Mr. Customer, can go and do things like sleep or take vacations, but they can also get certified or get recertified, get new certifications, get caught up on all your storage and hardware certs, so that eventually you become more knowledgeable, you refresh your technology, you are able to retain your employees because they're not so stressed out worrying about so much stuff they shouldn't have to worry about. They can focus on the business focus, the mission critical stuff for your industry and what y'all do. While we take care of the hardware, the platforms, the decisions, staying current on technology, et cetera, for you, and you leverage that expertise with us.
And what I like about that is, we touched on just that pace of trying to keep up with stuff. So even, Lauren, Dell rolls out to an enterprise level customer, and if 85% of their time is on maintenance, right? And you guys have the cool product, they're not going to be able to incorporate that in until probably 3 other cool products down the line, right? And so they're always in that chase mode. And that's why I think utilizing companies like Rackspace that can come in and help implement this, technology that's readily available and keep up with that demand and that pace is of the utmost importance. The good news is more and more companies are definitely open to those conversations.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think the power of our channel comes in, guys, is they're going to give access to a lot of companies that are looking at things differently, especially now. And we just need to continue these type of conversations to help position them in. And once again, the power that our guys are bringing in, our partners, is that they're going to be able to take whatever we architect here, right, on these type of conversations and see how it affects everything else and get ahead of it for a company, for their customers. And so they can see a whole end-to-end solution and incorporate everything and tie it all in together. So, I'm trying to figure out, obviously this is now edible piece. I'm trying to figure out a good wrap position here, because I think let's make sure, have we hit on key topics that you wanted to cover, Lauren?
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, I think a quick reminder or summary might be, I was thinking the next point I want to interject was on a great way for partners to find business that suits both of us in this call right now, private cloud solutions. Now is a great time, and we can start the
Great.
Now is a great time. If you think about it, if you're an engineer, when do you do maintenance? At low points in traffic, Friday night or whatever, Sunday morning. COVID has created a global maintenance window right now. Business is really slow. And for those that have the future thought in mind, this is a great time to reevaluate their current IT stance, a great time to do a data center assessment, a cloud readiness assessment, what I call a data center defrag. What hardware are you running on? You got 10-year-old servers, you got new stuff. Do it now. If traffic is low and you think you're going to be in business next year, let's do an assessment of what you've got and figure out, can we consolidate all this stuff and all these locations onto a new leaner private cloud solution on top of Dell hardware in a Rackspace data center or on-premise customer or in a co-location facility. So now's a great time for customers to rebuild and future-proof on Dell gear. Does that make sense? Is that what he's talking about?
I completely agree. And I think that it's a really, really unique time too for, Kobe, all of your sellers. Don't fear the cloud. The cloud is built on the same products you guys are selling today, right? Compute, networking, storage solutions, backup appliances. I say, you drop it on your foot, you say, ouch, right? Hardware stuff. That's what it's all built on. It's just helping customers consume it in a different way. So directly to Paul's point, right? Our end user customers, everyone is reassessing what they're doing right now. And in a lot of ways, due to especially the way that the dynamics of the workplace are going to change, we're also limiting physical resources that are going to be occurring on premise. Yeah. So now is the time to really surface the conversations around like, hey, how are you thinking about the future of your data centers, right? In the future of your technology consumption, in the way that you support your workforce, your employees, your customer, your end user, whoever it might be, in your business process. And have you thought proactively about your options around cloud and doing some level of consumption in a private model that's going to give you the consistent performance, availability, and security that you need to deliver on your SLAs in a more unique and off-premise consumption. So now's the time more than ever, I would say.
So what if we make, Kobe, what if we go with the final closing point, a call to action, a recommended call to action for everybody watching today?
I want to actually try to edit both of what you guys just said into here.
Oh,
so
sure.
I might actually ask a question that then I'll work with our editing team to go back and put in place of that.
Yeah, because I think Laura was on a roll there. She was killing it.
Oh yeah, you guys, that was great. So what I'm thinking is, from a question standpoint, what are a couple, Lauren, this is a question, right? So Lauren, what's a key piece of advice that you would like to give to our, the Telarus partners, our sellers, on, from your viewpoint?
Key piece of advice, I would say, next time you pick up the phone and have a conversation with all of your existing customers, start with your existing customers, right? They are the customers that are existent in your book of business. They have your trust and they look at you as an advisor already. Great. Have the cloud conversation with them. Hey, you know what? I never really had a conversation with you about what your cloud strategy is. It could be that broad, right? Start there. What's the cloud strategy? To Paul's point earlier, and even Kobe, to your point earlier, asking the questions around why, who's it coming from? Where are you going to start? What are you thinking about? And why are you thinking about it that way, right? And just go from there. Relate it back to just understanding the whole kind of concept of IT, understanding the fact that so much goes on outside of the four walls of a traditional brick and mortar data center. And don't be afraid to get involved with that conversation and then pivot and include the experts, right? Because we're going to help you and we can fuel those conversations. We're going to get you paid at the end of the day. That's important to know.
Well, I think that's a great point. And I don't want to wrap this up before I make the point that in our channel, guys, we still have not found the best vehicles to get paid on the hyperscaler type of environments. Commissionable income or revenue, I guess would be a better way to put that, is much easier to source through private cloud. So not that we ever want to over position something with our customers, but at the same time, going back to that concept of, I want to go to Azure. Well, why? I don't know. I was told I had to go to Azure. If we can actually help guide them through a decision-making process and incorporate the private cloud conversation into it based off some of this information today, or grab resources that you want to bring in some of these conversations from our team, from the Rackspace team, we will gladly sit there and help do that. And it'll be a much more profitable conversation for you guys in the long run. Especially if you're stopping as soon as they said AWS or Azure. So
I think there's a general call to action for the viewers out there and across the industry. From an engineering perspective, when is the best time to do maintenance? It's when traffic is low. You do it at night on a Friday or whatever to avoid disrupting your production facilities. We're kind of in a global maintenance window right now. Things have slowed down drastically for a lot of businesses. This is an excellent time for business leaders to start reevaluating their IT situations, their current hardware inventory, their logistics. Call it a data center defrag. Find out what they've got everywhere and figure out what makes the most sense going forward in 2021. A great time to reassess, look at what you're doing. And so sellers out there, you can reach out to your customers just from a human perspective, because you've all worked so hard for the relationships that you have today. Reach out. How are you guys doing today? What's going on at your business? What are you trying to get done? What do you want to do? Why can't you do that yet? And let's talk about what you want to get done, where you want to be, and think, okay, things are slow right now, but they're going to get better. Let's take a look at this footprint and say we can consolidate all this stuff and all these cabinets down to a really kick-butt virtualization platform on certain hardware with certain operating systems, et cetera. Smaller footprint, lower cost, because financially businesses have been hit hard now. They got to figure out, we think it's bad now. It's going to be rough, economically speaking, when businesses stop coming up and folks are unemployed and revenue streams change. So now is a great time to lower your future operating costs. And one way to accomplish that is by consolidating your hardware to a smaller footprint. New hardware, new features, but less, so you're lowering your IT costs drastically to prep for how the next couple of years are going to be. So great conversations to have. Reach out to your partners and talk and find out, are you able to reevaluate and figure what your plan is going to be going forward?
And know that you guys are not alone in this, right? We're going to be here to
Right.
help with those conversations. We got great resources. Myself, our engineering team are always at your disposal. So please utilize us. And in closing, I just wanted to say thank you very much to Lauren and to Paul. And we look forward to talking to you guys again next time. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's been fun. Good luck, guys. Good selling.
Thanks.